ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaskar my dear friends, this is video number 33. Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. This video will start with talk number 451. 4th February 1938, talk number 451. Mr. S.S. Surya Narayana Shastri, reader in philosophy, Madras University, arrived this night. He had a doubt which he said had been cleared on reading Sarma's commentary on knowledge of self. The doubt was, how can the world be an imagination or a thought? Thought is a function of the mind. The mind is located in the brain. The brain is within the skull of a human being who is only an infinitesimal part of the universe. How then can the universe be contained in the cells of the brain? Sri Bhagavan answered saying, so long as the mind is considered to be an entity of the kind described, the doubt will persist. But what is mind? Let us consider. The world is seen when the man wakes up from sleep. It comes after the eye thought. The head rises up, so the mind has become active. What is the world? It is objects spread out in space. Who comprehends it? The mind. Is not the mind which comprehends space itself space, akasa? The space is physical ether, bhutakasha. The mind is mental ether, manakasha, which is contained in transcendental ether, chidakasa. The mind is thus the ether principle, akasa tattva. Being the principle of knowledge, jnana sattva, it is identified with ether, akasa, by metaphysics, considering it to be ether, akasa. There will be no difficulty in reconciling the apparent contradiction in the question. Pure mind, Suddha Manas, is ether, akasa. The dynamic and dull rajas and tamas aspects operate as gross objects, etc. Thus the whole universe is only mental. Again consider a man who dreams. He goes to sleep in a room with the door closed so that nothing can intrude on him while asleep. He closes his eyes when sleeping so that he does not see any object. Yet when he dreams, he sees a whole region in which people live and move about with himself among them. Did this panorama get in through the doors? It was simply unfolded to him by his brain. Is it the sleeper's brain or in the brain of the dream individual? It is in the sleeper's brain. How does it hold this vast country in its tiny cells? This must explain the oft repeated statement that the whole universe is a mere thought or a series of thoughts. Swami asked, I feel toothache. Is it only a thought? Maharshi, yes. Devotee, why can I not think that there is no toothache and thus cure myself? Mercy. When engrossed in other thoughts, one does not feel the toothache. When one sleeps, toothache is not felt. Devotee, but toothache remains all the same. Mercy. Such is the firm conviction of the reality of the world that it is not easily shaken off. The world does not become, for that reason, any more real than the individual himself. Devotee. Now, there is the Sino Japanese war. If it is only in imagination, can or will Sri Bhagwan imagine the country and put an end to the war? Maharshi. The Bhagwan of the questioner is as much a thought as the Sino-Japanese War. Laughter. 7th February 1938. Talk number 452. Mr. Dhar, ICS, a high officer, and his wife, both young, highly cultured, and intelligent, are on a visit here, but they fell ill since they arrived here. She desired to know how meditation could become steady. Maharshi, what is meditation? It consists in expulsion of thoughts. All the present troubles are due to thoughts and are themselves thoughts. Give up thoughts, that is happiness, and also meditation. Devotee, how are thoughts given up? Maharshi, the thoughts are for the thinker. Remain as the self of the thinker, and there is an end of thoughts. Mr. Dhar asked Sri Bhagwan why Brahma, who is perfection, creates and puts us to ordeals for regaining him. Mercy. Where is the individual who asked this question? He is in the universe and included in the creation. How does he resist the question when he is bound in the creation? He must go beyond it and see if any question arises then. 8th February 1938. Talk number 453. Three ladies are on a short visit here. Mrs. Hurst from New Zealand, Mrs. Craig, and Mrs. Ellison from London. One asked, what is the best way to work for world peace? Maharshi, what is world? What is peace? And who is the worker? The world is not in your sleep and forms the projection of your mind in your Jagrat. It is therefore an idea and nothing else. Peace is absence of disturbance. The disturbance is due to the arising of thoughts in the individual, who is only the ego, rising up from pure consciousness. To bring about peace means to be free from thoughts and to abide as pure consciousness. If one remains at peace oneself, there is only peace all about. Devotee, if it is a question of doing something one considers wrong and hereby saving someone else from a great wrong, should one do it or refrain? Maharshi, what is right and wrong? There is no standard by which to judge something to be right and another to be wrong. Opinions differ according to the nature of the individual and according to the surroundings. They are again ideas and nothing more. Do not worry about them, but get rid of thoughts. If you always remain in the right, then right will prevail in the world. Devotee, what should one think of when meditating? Maharshi, what is meditation? It is expulsion of thoughts. You are perturbed by thoughts which rushes one after another. Hold on to one thought so that others are expelled. Continuous practice gives the necessary strength of mind to engage in meditation. Meditation differs according to the degree of advancement of the seeker. If one is fit for it, one might directly hold the thinker, and the thinker will automatically sink into his source, namely pure consciousness. If one cannot directly hold the thinker, one must meditate on God, and in due course the same individual will have become sufficiently pure to hold the thinker and sink into absolute being. One of the ladies was not satisfied with this answer and asked for further elucidation. Sri Bhagwan then pointed out that to see wrong in another is one's own wrong. The discrimination between right and wrong is the origin of the sin. One's own sin is reflected outside, and the individual in ignorance superimposes it on another. The best course for one is to reach the state in which such discrimination does not arise. Do you see wrong or right in your sleep? Did you not exist in sleep? Be asleep even in the wakeful state. Abide as the self and remain uncontaminated by what goes on around. Moreover, however much you might advise them, your hearers may not rectify themselves. Be in the right yourself and remain silent. Your silence will have more effect than your words or deeds. That is the development of willpower. Then the world becomes the kingdom of heaven which is within you. Devotee, if one is to withdraw oneself, why is there the world? Maharshi, where is the world and where does one go withdrawing oneself? Does one fly in an aeroplane beyond space? Is it withdrawal? The fact is this: the world is only an idea. What do you say? Are you within the world or is the world within you? Devotee, I am in the world. I am part of it. Mercy, that is the mistake. If the world were to exist apart from you, does it come and tell you that it exists? No, you see it exist. You see it when you are awake and not when asleep. If it exists apart from you, it must tell you so, and you must be aware of it even in your sleep. Devotee, I became aware of it in my Jagrat. Maharshi, do you become aware of yourself and then of the world, or do you become aware of the world and then of yourself, or do you become aware of both simultaneously? Devotee, I must say simultaneously. Maharshi, were you or were you not before becoming aware of yourself? Do you admit your continued existence before and when you become aware of the world? Devotee, yes. Maharshi, if always existing yourself, Why are you not aware of the world in sleep if it exists apart from the self? Devotee, I become aware of myself and of the world also. Maharshi, so you become aware of yourself, who becomes aware of whom are there two selves? Devotee, no. Maharshi, so you see that it is wrong to suppose that awareness has passing phases. The self is always aware. When the self identifies itself as the seer, it sees objects. The creation of the subject and the object is the creation of the world. Subjects and objects are creations in pure consciousness. You see pictures moving on the screen in a cinema show. When you are intent on the pictures, you are not aware of the screen, but the pictures cannot be seen without the screen behind. The world stands for the pictures and consciousness stands for the screen. The consciousness is pure. It is the same as the self which is eternal and unchanging. Get rid of the subject and object and pure consciousness will alone remain. Devotee, but why did pure Brahma become Ishvara and manifest the universe if he did not mean it? Mercy, did Brahma or Ishvara tell you so? You say that Brahma become Ishvara and so on. This too you did not say in your sleep. Only in your Jagrat state you speak of Brahma, Ishvara and universe. The Jagrat state is a duality of subject and object owing to the rise of thoughts, so they are your thought creations. Devotee, but the world exists in my sleep even though I am not aware. Maharshi, what is the proof of its existence? Devotee, others are aware of it. Maharshi, do they say so to you when you are in sleep, or do you become aware of others who see the world in your sleep? Devotee, no, but the God is always aware. Maharshi, leave God alone. Speak for yourself. You do not know God. He is only what you think of Him. Is He apart from you? He is that pure consciousness in which all ideas are formed. You are that consciousness. 10th February 1938. Talk number 454. Mrs. Dhar. Sri Bhagwan advises practice of enquiry even when one is engaged in external activities. The finality of such enquiry is the realization of the self, and consequently breath must stop if breath should stop. How will work go on? Or, in other words, how will breath stop when one is working? Maharshi, there is confusion between the means and the end, that is, sadhana and sadhya. Who is the enquirer? The aspirant and not the siddha. Enquiry signifies that the enquirer considers himself separate from enquiry. So long as this duality lasts, the enquiry must be continued, that is, until the individuality disappears and the self is realized to be only the eternal being, including enquiry and enquirer. The truth is that self is constant and unintermittent awareness. The object of inquiry is to find the true nature of the self as awareness. Let one practice inquiry so long as separateness is perceived. If once a realization arises, there is no further need for enquiry. The question will also not arise. Can awareness ever think of questioning who is aware? Awareness remains pure and simple. The enquirer is all aware of his own individuality. Enquiry does not stand in the way of his individual awareness, nor does external work interfere with such awareness. If work seemingly external does not obstruct the individual awareness, will the work realized to be not separate from the self, obstruct the uninterrupted awareness of the self, which is one without a second and which is not an individual separate from work. Talk number 455. Mrs. Dhar, I form part of the creation and so remain dependent. I cannot solve the riddle until I become independent. Yes, I ask Sri Bhagwan, should he not answer the question for me? Maharshi, yes, it is Bhagwan that says, become independent and solve the riddle yourself. It is for you to do it. Again, where are you now that you ask this question? Are you in the world or is the world within you? You must admit that the world is not perceived in your sleep, although you cannot deny your existence then. The world appears when you wake up. So where is it? Clearly, the world is your thought. Thoughts are your projections. The I is first created and then the world. The world is created by the I, which in its turn rises from the self. The riddle of the creation of the world is thus solved if you solve the creation of the I. So I say, find yourself. Again, does the world come and ask you, why do you, why do I exist? How was I created? It is you who ask the question. The questioner must establish the relationship between the world and himself. He must admit that the world is his own imagination. Who imagines it? Let him again find the I and then the self. Moreover, all the scientific and ideological explanations do not harmonize. The diversities in such theories clearly show the uselessness of seeking such explanations. Such explanations are purely mental or intellectual and nothing more. Still, all of them are true according to the standpoint of the individual. There is no creation in the state of realization. When one sees the world, one does not see oneself. When one sees the self, the world is not seen. So see the self and realize that there has been no creation. The lady being led up is unable to go to the hall and so feels unhappy that though near, she cannot go into the hall. This was mentioned to Sri Bhagwan. He said, well, thinking like this keeps her always in the presence. This is better than remaining in the hall and thinking of something else. 11th February 1938, talk number 456. Contact with saints. A danger. Seek the company of saints by all means, but do not remain indefinitely with them. The adage familiarity breeds contempt. applies even to their case, writes Swami Ramdas in the course of an article in the Vision. Spiritual growth is no doubt largely dependent on suitable association. Company of saints is therefore held to be essential for a seeker after truth, but it must not be understood by the company of saints to mean that the seeker should permanently stick onto them. He may, for a brief period, remain in their contact and thereby drawing inspiration and guidance, get himself thoroughly awakened to the consciousness of the indwelling reality. It would be well for him to depart from them before the light and inspiration that he has received diminishes or disappears, may turn scoffers. There are many cases known to the writer and many others of which he has heard and read, in which such continued dwelling in the company of saints has not only cooled down the ardor and aspirations of the seekers but also turned them into scoffers and skeptics. The fall of a sadhak from faith, purity, and aspiration does him incalculable harm. A young plant growing beneath the shade of a full grown giant tree does not develop strength and stature. Its growth will be dwarfed, shriveled, and diseased. Whereas if the same plant were put into the open ground, directly exposed to the storms, heat, cold, and other rigors of changing weather, it is bound to grow into a mighty tree, drawing sustenance both from above and below. Stifled growth. This analogy of plant aptly illustrates the stunted life of a seeker who is attached merely to the outward personality of a saint and spends all his days in close association with him. Here the initiative for a free expression of his unique spiritual possibilities is stifled. He fails to cultivate the fundamental qualities for his advancement: fearlessness, self-dependence, and endurance. The one great guide that should control his mind, speech, and body should be the Almighty Spirit within him. To surrender to this Spirit and become its very embodiment is his goal. To stand on his own legs, struggle and grow by his own strength and experience, and lastly, to hand himself over to God by his own endeavor brings true liberation and peace. From what has been said above, it must not be construed that reflection is cast upon the greatness and efficacy of the company of God realized souls. Such a contact is the most effective means for a rapid spiritual evolution of the soul. In fact, the grace of saints is an invaluable aid for sadhana, and without it the condition of the aspirant is like a bird beating in vain its wings against the bars of the cage for freedom. Saints are the saviors and liberators. The Hindu conception of a saint is that he is the very embodiment of God Himself. So honor him, derive the rare benefit of his society, serve him with a frank and pure heart, listen intently to his words of advice, and strive to act up to them and achieve the fullest knowledge of the truth you are in quest of. But seek not to remain attached to his person and lose the spiritual gifts you obtained from him by first contacts. This cutting was read out to Sri Bhagwan. He listened and remained silent. He was requested to see if contact with the saints could be a danger. Sri Bhagwan then quoted a Tamil stanza which says that contact with Guru should be kept up till Videha Mukti, being disembodied. Again he asked, where is the Satpurusha? He is within. Then he quoted another stanza meaning, O Master, who has been within me in all my past incarnations and who manifested as a human being only to speak the language understood by me and lead me. So I end this video here. Next video number 34 will start with talk number 457. So thank you my dear friends for watching this video. Please like, comment and share the video and subscribe the channel. Namaskar.